are some key things that we got to discuss when it comes to LSU and South Carolina in this recap. Some of them are going to be things that you must fix if you want to get where you want to go. There are some things that I thought were actually positives. Like, for example, let's start off with a positive here, a couple of positives. Guys, I can't tell you, and I think that this got missed in my postgame because of all the things that happened. I can't tell you how thrilled I am, how excited I am that you found a way, regardless of what it looked like, to come back when you're down 17, you've been punched in the mouth, you find out so much about your team. And something that we talked about last Thursday was the number one thought that we had going into Thursday's show was, how does this team react to and how does this team rally behind their head coach when adversity hits in a must-win situation on the road in the SEC? Well, they find a way to win, and they did. Coming back from 17 points down, even coming back when you're down 24-10, I thought was a massive deal. You go down the field and score. I know that there was a bad extra point situation with Slade Roy, had a very bad snap, could have cost you the game, but it didn't. And you continue to respond. You come out in the second half. You make these second half adjustments that you need to. You get the ball down the field, and you ultimately score enough to win you the football game. I love the resolve. And let me tell you this too. Brian Kelly talked on this today in his press conference, but something else that I think is a really big key when we're talking about this LSU team. You know, I was listening to Kirby Smart today too. And Kirby Smart had a really, really tough game this past week against Kentucky. They beat Kentucky 13-12 and what was a dogfight. And, you know, they both said the same exact thing. I learned more about my team and staff this week than I learned about them the previous 2 weeks combined. Guys, really good teams with really good chemistry is able to respond and never give up and do what both of those teams did, but especially here, since we're talking about LSU, that is a sign that your chemistry is really good. Brian Kelly alluded to this today. It's like, hey, man, you know, we're on the sidelines, and I'm listening to our team, and they're like, hey, man, we got to finish. We got to go in here, and we got to finish. We got to respond. We got to win. You know, DJ Chester has a snap and that hits Garrett Nussmeier in the chest, and it's a fumble. And you're wondering how you're going to respond for that. They uplift him. That's what good culture looks like. When you're down, when you think nothing is going to go right for you today, you find a way to be productive. I love everything about that. You can't take that away from this team, and you can't take it away when you go on the road, like both LSU and Georgia did, and find ways to win in tough environments. I think another thing that I really liked, I love that you found a running game. I think that you did find a running game. I know that there's a lot of people that are out there that are saying that you didn't. Oh, I just got reminded of something. Let me back up very quickly. I want to bring this up. This is something that was sent to me today. I was sent by somebody today that there is a report out there from CBS that there are talks amongst people in the LSU building that the chemistry is fractured and that players have a disconnect with Brian Kelly. Well, they sure as hell didn't have a disconnect with Brian Kelly when Perk Dog is dapping him up at the end of the game and they're loving on Brian Kelly. CBS, especially guys that used to cover Alabama, you're an idiot. You don't have any sources inside the program. You know I know because I asked them. Just wanted to throw that out there. If you watch LSU shows, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I love that you found a running game, and a lot of people disagree with me on this. Your running backs had 28 carries for 153 yards and 2 scores. Guys, you were over 5 yards a carry. And I got to be real with you. I know that Caden Durham was the one that came in and produced 98 yards of that. I'm with it. I love it. I love everything about it. There's also 60 yards in there that you got from other backs that were featured that you got to love too. Guys, if I would have told you that you go into Texas or did you go into South Carolina against that front seven and you run for 158 yards and Garrett Nussmeier was going to throw for damn near 300 yards again, you'd be like, okay, that might be a pretty productive day. Those are the things that I like. You found a way. You got a young running back in the game, and he broke some tackles for you. I thought Xavier Thomas looked good when he got a carry, which I want him to get more carries. That's for damn sure. But there's definitely some things that you got to clean up if you want to get to where you want to go and the expectations that you have for this team. Let's start with them. Guys, on Saturday, and this isn't even a Saturday thing because you did this against the other USC too in week 1. LSU defense forced 3 turnovers. And which is something that you and I talked about all offseason is how can Blake Baker get the most of his unit? The most of his unit after last year they had a very, very bad performance. Well, guys, I thought that they were pretty flawless, if I'm being honest, at moments and times. Forcing 3 turnovers, the pass rush that you got was absolutely amazing. Absolutely and positively amazing. But when you got those 3 turnovers, you know how many points you got generated off of that? 3. That's inexcusable. You got a turnover on downs against Southern California a couple of weeks ago, and when Savion Jones bats a ball in the air, you can't go down the field and score. The thing that has been plaguing this team through 3 weeks is one thing that has to be corrected. When your defense is getting off the field, when your defense is producing turnovers for you, you know, like the first sack by Sage Ryan that was a strip sack and Harold Perkins recovers it. Guys, you got to settle for a field goal. That's not good enough. It's not good enough. Major Burns gets a fumble recovery. And the next offensive drive, or the drive that you come out on offense to really start separating yourself, Garrett Nussmeier throws a pick. Inexcusable. I would rather you take a sack and get a field goal in that situation than the worst thing that humanly can happen is you turning the ball over. And then Braden Swinson getting a turnover himself and you not being able to do anything with it. Those are the things that will lose you football games. So if you want me to wrap this entire game into a bow that has to be fixed, when you force turnovers, because here's the thing, this defense with the pass rush that they have, with the things that they're doing and just the aggressiveness that Blake Baker sends, guys, you're going to force more turnovers. You're going to force turnovers against Ole Miss. I have confidence that you can do it. But when you do it and when you get crucial stops, you got to capitalize. That is going to be the difference in you winning and losing. It very may well be, and you're lucky that you found a way to win this one, even though you didn't have that happen. But even in that, you could literally be on the outside looking in of a playoff. And the big reason, because from a totalitarian part of a season, it's because when you force turnovers, you did not play good enough complementary football to win you football games in crucial moments. You already lost a game because of it. The other thing that I think is just as bad is that you have not been able to produce in the red zone, or what Brian Kelly calls the red, white, or blue zone, considering on if you're at the 20, you're at the red zone. Was it the 10-yard line, blue zone, and then 5-yard white? Whatever, however he broke it down, I don't really remember. Because you were in the end zone, you were in the red zone 3 times, and you got 7 points. The pass to Kyron Lacy in the first half. Josh Williams gets into the red zone again, you score. But I look at when you come out at halftime and you're unable to get 7 there. You're in the red zone after you force a turnover. You get 3. Guys, those kinds of things are going to get you beat. The red zone right now for LSU offensively is the most broken thing that they have on their team. It's not remotely close. Guys, I used to tell you this all the time. And I think it still remains. yards don't mean anything if you can't score points. You can go out there and have 700 yards, which ironically happened to a team already this year. And if you have turnovers and you can't score points, you're going to lose. And I think the critical times that you had turnovers was also crucial. But very crucial. Guys, the interception was really bad. Both interceptions were really bad, if we're being honest. But one of them got reversed, and which we'll talk about this in a minute. Well, both of them got reversed, but one of them got taken off the board. And the other one, well, South Carolina had the ball, but it wasn't the pick six that was originally how the play went out. The two things that you have to fix now is you're really, really, really going to have to start forcing on those turnovers, getting more than 3 points. And when you get in the red zone, you got to get 7. Guys, you're talking about, and Brian Kelly alluded to this too in his press conference. We talked about this ad nauseum in the postgame. Guys, if you're getting in the red zone and you're not getting 7 consistently, you're going to lose football games that you have no business losing. Like I look at it, Texas A&M, man. I look at A&M. I look at teams around the conference. Like, look, man, if Lenore Sellis can run the ball on you and you get into a little bit of a shootout, Taylon Green can do it. Marcel Reed at A&M might be able to do it. What is Jackson Dart and what is Jalen Milroe able to do? Like, the red zone's going to be a massive deal and always will be a massive deal for you. But if you're not converting in the red zone, you're going to lose. And if you're not getting points off of turnovers, you're also going to lose. All right, I'm just going to say it. It's in my notes. I had contemplated all day about saying this, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I thought that Garrett Nussmeier had a really good game. I thought there were periods of times that he did some flawless things. You know, the pass over the middle, over the linebacker to Aaron Anderson. It's flawless. Some of the throws that Garrett made on Saturday were absolutely flawless. Because this is the concern that I had with him in the preseason. It was a concern that I've always had with him. I think Garrett's going to lead you to a lot of wins. And every time I say something negative or something that he's got to work on, I know the backlash that I get. And either I'm saying it wrong or people just don't care to listen. I don't know. But here's the truth. The decisions that he made in the first half and some of the decisions that he made in the second half were very bad. He was 25 of 40 and for about close to, what was it, 268, 278, whatever it was, and a couple of scores and a turnover. But, guys, both of those turnovers could have been massive. One of them was very massive. And when you have situations like that, look, he's on the road in a true road environment for the first time. You can't be critical on him to the point where, oh, you need to bench him. Even though I think it's ironic, you know, from Jaden to him, how we like to look at things. I think it's very ironic on how you grade different guys. Well, one guy was already a starter. Well, guys, he's in his 4th year. Like, he's not a young quarterback. The thing with Nuss and everything that he does, you got to limit the mistakes. And I'm not talking about mistakes in reference to wrong decisions in reference to you make a bad throw. I'm talking about the boneheaded decisions like throwing into triple coverage and what was a pick six. Let's call it what it is. Okay, even though he got lit up on the play, guys, that would have been a backbreaker and you lose the football game. I think Garrett, I can't say this enough. I think he's going to grow. I think he's going to be a very good quarterback. But those are the I told you this in the offseason, so you can go back and listen to it if you like. And if you say that I'm just making this up, Jaden Daniels' best ability was the ability to not turn the football over. Great quarterbacks, their ability, like, for example, I watched Cincinnati and Kansas City last week or yesterday. Patrick Mahomes had very crucial mistakes, and that's Patrick Mahomes. And you have big media guys in Kansas City, even guys like Nick Wright on FS1 saying, yeah, man, we got lucky. Garrett's decision-making in crucial moments, guys, take the sack. Take the sack, especially when Robbie Ashford's in the game, and respectfully speaking, their inability to run the football on you or move the football at will is at a dire need. Like, they can't do it outside the long run that Raheem Sanders had. It's situational awareness that he's got to have. Again, we'll say this just to cover my own ass, because I know how a lot of you are, especially some of you that like to have pitchforks and hoodies on. Preferably they're white. In your opinion, he's got to make better decisions. And I contemplated all day about having this conversation, but that's how I see it. When you have so let me finish with this before we get to the last thing, and then Carter Bryant joins us. The last thing that I would say on this, Major Burns picks up a fumble on a Braden Swinson strip sack. The worst thing that can happen is an interception. It's the worst thing that can happen. Well, actually, the worst thing that can happen was the pick six, and that's what happened. Just because he came back for a penalty does not bother me. You know, we go into a UCLA game this week, and the horse collar throw for Nuss and decision by Nuss was just as bad as Max Johnson's was much worse. But the Max Johnson behind the back throw. Like, that cannot happen. That will cost you football games. Last thing. I agree with Brian Kelly on his defensive line, if I'm being honest. He said today that, listen, a lot of the conversations that we had in the offseason was that our interior defensive line was not going to hold up, but our D-line's held up. Problem is that sometimes his linebacking play has not been up to par. And I thought that Whit Weeks had a very bad game. But let me tell you why I'm going to give Whit Weeks a little bit of a mulligan. Not a complete mulligan, but a little bit. I told you in the postgame show that I had talked to somebody on South Carolina staff. And there was a report that came out this past week about what they were going to do schematically to South Carolina. The first 5 runs that South Carolina had was at number 40. The reason that they were at number 40 was because of a report that came out, because this guy's stepdaddy and this guy, I don't even know what's going on. But, guys, I'm going to tell you, and this is for media included, sometimes the best thing that you can do is shut your mouth. Because there are thousands of things that I hear throughout every single week that I do not, on a remote basis, not even hint and come out here and talk to you about. Now, mainly that has to do with I don't want to be the guy that leaks a game plan information that can get the team that I cover beat. It's not my place to do that. But Whit Weeks had a really bad game. The Raheem Sanders run for a touchdown, it's on him for not having contained. He's not the only one. Greg Penn, the inverted veer run that Lenore Sellers had, that's on Greg Penn. Greg Penn has to fill that hole, and Sage Ryan, God bless him, the explosive plays are a problem. And they can remain to be a problem. But the reason I'm going to give Whit Weeks a mulligan, or a little bit of a mulligan, is because the game plan that Blake Baker had for this team in South Carolina was absolutely shit upon because of an overreacting report that was not true. Harold Perkins did not get moved to the star. Guys, they ran a 4-3. They were very multiple in what they did. You know how I know, too? Because your head coach came out today and confirmed it. Is Harold Parkins out of the star? No. He's at Sam linebacker. Okay, thank you. Well, you're welcome. So when all these things happen throughout the week, and you call me, sometimes some of you call me what you call me. Maybe you need to make sure that other things aren't happening and posts need to be taken down. So I'm going to say, all right.